Hey, this is me. This is me in a silly Christmas crown, and this is me with a bunch of dogs. A few weeks ago, I got diagnosed with possible depression, then it turned into probable depression, and now it's just plain old, middle-of-the-road depression. But the problem was, when I was diagnosed, I didn't know how depression affected people. It's one of those words that's thrown around as a label, and you hear that someone is depressed, and you know they're not well, but you don't know how they're not well. So I thought sharing my story might help somehow, might shed some light on it. And I know I can't talk on behalf of everyone with depression, because it's a spectrum, and I can only talk about my own perspective on it, but I'm hoping that at least helps somewhat. When I first told everyone that I had been diagnosed, everyone expected me to be sad and, well, depressed. But it's not that, it's emptiness. It's this void of emotion. It's like someone just comes up, takes all your emotions and feeling, and walks off with it, and you're just there, stranded, a bit like, hey, I was using those. And it sort of sounds cool in theory. I mean, you're like a robot, you're like a Terminator, but it's not. You go through day-to-day life and you're like, ice cream, okay. Or Christmas, okay. And even bad things like your dog being put down is still just okay. And you live in this world where there's no relation anymore between what happens to you and how you're feeling or your emotional response to it. And an analogy would be if you ran out of oranges and you went to your local store to buy more oranges, but all you could find is a pet store. And people in it are trying to sell you kittens and goldfish and exotic birds, but none of it fixes the fact you don't have oranges. The same way nothing fixes the fact you don't feel anything anymore. And what's the point in getting up in the morning when you get just as much joy from lying in your bed that you would from doing anything outside of it? And while this is happening, your mind races. You're constantly confused as to what's happening. You don't know why it's happening, or what even is happening, or why it is, or how to stop it. And your mind just races, and the storm brews inside you and just builds up. And how can your dog being put down have such little effect on you, and then a cold breeze catching you off guard send you into a tearful madness? It makes no sense, and it crushes you. And then it gets complicated, because you don't live in this world on your own. There's other people who have roles to play, and there are people who are awful, who make living hell because they don't understand. But I'm lucky, and I know I'm lucky because I have some fantastic friends who have been truly wonderful and so lovely and helpful through this time. And just a quick shout out to them for being such marvelous people. But the harder you fall into this state, the harder you will hold on to them, and the tighter they will hold on to you. And it's wonderful they do it. But I don't know if this is everyone, but I start to live in fear that from my perspective I'm being held up by them. But from their perspective, it's completely possible I'm just dragging them down. And you start to feel this guilt that you're burdening them, and you want to free them of yourself, but you're too scared to let go, because they are the only thing that makes you feel anything anymore. And it's like Titanic. You're drowning in this ocean of mental health problems, and they're there and they're safe on the little platform that's floating, and they promise to never let you go, but you just hope they do because it's easier for them. and this guilt plagues you and just destroys you. And I guess that's how I would describe depression. It's so much more than being sad. It's scary and confusing and terrifying, and you wake up every day wondering why you've woken up. And I don't know, I hope sharing this story somehow helps either someone struggling with it themselves, like just to say they're not alone, or help someone who's trying to understand it more. I hope somehow I have.